Hello, everybody. Good to be with you today. I have prepared another segment for everyone today. And what I wanted to do is revisit the Otto Binder reports. Now, I've talked about these in the past, but I think it's worth revisiting these because they're historical. They have references to these, they're worldwide. You know how they try to make all these UFO cases disappear prior to 2004? Well, these cases completely destroy that myth away because they're way before 2004. So, however difficult it is to manage what the government's trying to do with making things disappear, we won't let them do that because these cases will not be denied. So I'm just going to read the first one here, and then we'll go into a little bit of the bio of Otto Binder, who he was, what he did when he published these reports. And then I'm just going to hit you with a whole bunch of these things, and we'll kind of rip through these here. So let me read the first one here. It's May 1967. Mr. X, name withheld by request, of Anderson, South Carolina, was fishing on Hartwell Lake and saw an octagonal UFO apparently pumping up water through a metal tube. Mr. X was near enough to cast and strike the object, but nobody came out and it soon shot away into the sky. So back in 67, that's what people are reporting. Now, there was a huge wave in 47. There was a huge flap in 52. There was a huge flap in 67. So this one falls into that category. But here you've got this octagonal shaped UFO, water pumper, and then it shoots away. So I guess the big question here is who's building these things back in 67 that look like these? I mean, there really was no visible means of propulsion. There was no rockets. There was no jets. There was no ducted fans. There was no engines, no aileron, no tail. Somebody's building these things. It can't be denied because there are dozens of these type reports. So let's go on to a little bit further on who he is here. Otto Binder was a prolific writer from Chicago and moved to New York in 1936. From 1965 to 1969, he published a weekly newspaper column titled Our Space Age, which was published in 25 states and 11 foreign newspapers. This unique weekly column featured nonfiction UFO reports from all around the world and included a brief historical background and a very well done drawing by artist Carl Pfeiffer. The reports included many classic UFO cases as well as new accounts sent to him by readers. So sources, Gray Barker UFO Collection, Clarksburg, West Virginia. And I also want to credit David Marler, who's got a brand new National UFO Record Center. I want to credit him for getting the very high resolution versions of these reports, which I want to show you today here. Let's continue on here. All right, so let's dive into these cases here. And these are just fantastic cases from all over the world. Let's see who's checking in. Eddie, thanks for being with me. John P. Adventures. Steve, Sonny, Mark, Shed Talk. Great. Richie, great to be with you. All right, so March 26, 1880, almost a century ago. This is already way old. The people of Galisteo Junction, New Mexico, were startled to observe a giant fish-shaped airship sail over, in which a group of humanoids sang loudly enough to be heard below. So back in 1880, this is being reported. This is long before the Wright brothers flew December 17th, 1903 at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So again, who's building these craft way before powered flight? This is being reported here. Let's go on here. Another one. February 3rd, 1907, two Englishmen sighted a giant lantern in the sky, flying low over the countryside and lighting up the night scenery vividly for 20 minutes before it went out like a light. Back in 1907, they're seeing flying lanterns. Interesting. This is long before powered flight here. And that's kind of what these reports are. And there's hundreds of these things. So however much the government wants to make all this disappear, they can't, because these cases will not die. They will not be denied. Next one, August 1914. Georgian Bay, Canada, William J. Cale and friends all stared astonished at a UFO that landed on the bay with two little men in square helmets hosing up water into their craft, after which it fled away swiftly. 1914, this is being reported. I think it's astounding. I think it's absolutely astounding that this is going on, and these cases just keep on coming. I've probably got at least a good solid 12 of these water pumper UFOs where they're pumping water in there. This one talks about square-shaped helmets. Well, I've got another case of a Michelin man that was wearing a square helmet. So that seems to check. Let's continue on to the next one here. December 26, 1926, Hot Springs, South Dakota. Two state policemen, Donald Kelm and Jack Peters, were amazed to witness a huge salad bowl UFO that bobbed and skittered through the air without a sound. So a soundless UFO in 1926. I mean, powered flight is, well established by this point, but nothing that looks like this back in 26. This is early time frame here. Two credible eyewitness police officers. These are some of the people that, we would want to trust their reliability, the credibility of the police officers. Let's check back in here. Roger, good to be with you. Tracy, thank you. Can these reports be purchased in a book form? I don't think they're in a book form. They're just kind of scattered. These were at the Clarksburg, West Virginia, the Gray Barker collection. That's where I got them. I mean, you can get them there too. David Marler also, he has the best copies, and that's what he provided me here. Tim Fleming, great to be with you. Roger Murray. All right, let's continue on here. March 15th, 1950, never reported anywhere before. Near Santa Fe, New Mexico, dozens of witnesses spied a queerly shaped half-moon UFO with a row of lighted windows that sometimes swooped as low as 100 feet from the ground. Back in 1950, who's building things that look like this in 1950? I mean, they are not using their Bernoulli theory of flight, okay? These things are not even flying. They are going across the air like an oil pathway in the sky, moving very slowly. They're not flying, they're floating. So that's something that we should consider too. Let's go on to the next one here. April 27th, 1950, near Goshen, Indiana, a huge red wheel-like saucer paced a TWA DC-3 airliner for miles, alarming the passengers and crew before it finally dived away at terrific speed. Back in 1950, a wheel-like saucer. Again, who's building these things in 1950? We've got a DC-3 up against this craft. I think the technology is incredible. But before we jump on the bandwagon and say that, this is ET here, we always want to look beneath the surface to the understructure of these cases, because a lot of these, we've got this low frequency electrical humming noise. We've got lights. We've already talked about how lights on an ET spacecraft could only be for decoration. They don't really need lights if they're coming from 2.6 million light years away. They wouldn't have any jets or anything. So we want to look at these with a critical eye, but also be open-minded as well. All right, next one. August 14th, 1950, never reported anywhere before. In Lugano, England, 10 people, including a priest, police chief, and physics professor, witnessed up to 100 UFOs sailing through the sky and making a humming organ tone. 1950, 100 UFOs. Is somebody cranking these things out, or are these ET spacecraft? Very interesting. Not quite enough information to put together an assessment here, but I thought the organ tone was interesting. I thought that was an interesting remark here. Let's continue on. September 1954, John Abazi, Lorain, Ohio, saw this UFO in amazing detail as it dropped from the clouds abruptly and hovered over his car before it shot north across Lake Erie toward Canada. So this is 1954, and this is what he's reporting. So it's got two outer rings turning clockwise, middle ring turning counterclockwise, bubble top blue smoke tint, diameter 120 feet, 50-foot thickness, color dull gray. Interesting. That's interesting. This whole idea about blue smoke, I've heard about this before. This thing is 120 feet in diameter, so it's rather large. This is something bigger back in 1954. This is what's being reported here. All right, mid-1957, Norwood, New Jersey. Out of her kitchen window, Miss Olive A. Cifelli was astonished to observe a large cigar-shaped UFO hovering over the ground while indistinct figures moved about on some unknown mission for several minutes before departing. So here we've got this cigar-shaped craft. We've got these humanoid beings associated with this thing. These have been reported for decades, these cigar-shaped UFOs as well. All right, let's continue on here. December 2nd, 1958, Montebello, California. 4 students reported being pursued by a flying saucer that shot down a peculiar ray which blistered the paint on their truck, also knocked out their lights and stopped their wristwatches. That's interesting. So we've got CE2 effects here. So knocked out their lights and stopped their watches. So this is a CE2 effect. Now, before we think that there's a hostile intent, I'm going to move forward with some of these, and we'll see who the real threat is as we go through these cases here. April 25th, 1960, Dorchester, Massachusetts. Judy Kalnicki was flung out of bed when an oval-shaped UFO blundered into her home and shook the whole house, then went on as if undamaged. So this is one of these cases where this craft hit the building. I've got a case from Leonard Stringfield where a UFO hit an Army facility and crashed. So I guess that's not completely unprecedented. We've heard about this before. Let's check in here. Richie Gray, thanks for being with me. Roger Pierce, at least some from the 1950s onward are theorized to be ARV or alien reproduction vehicles. Yeah, I concur with that. Tim Fleming, Jason Thornton, great to be with you. Okay, let's continue on here. November 15th, 1963, Peter Valco and Jim Kasayan of Bloomingdale, New Jersey, ran to where an amazing Skyliner seemed about to land, but it never did, vanishing mysteriously. And so this is kind of the caliber of what Otto Binder would receive, and then he'd go ahead and have these really nice drawings made up here. Let's continue on here. April 29th, 1964, near Morarity, Arizona, when a UFO approached and his car stalled, Don Adams leaped out with a rifle and fired 12 shots at the craft, which was unharmed and floated away. Incidents like these are increasingly needlessly. So again, who's the threat? In many of these cases, they hear the bullets ricocheting off the craft. They hear the audible tone. So there is an impact here. But that's typical America, right? Shoot first, ask questions later. We always are the ones with a hostile threat, and then we come back and ask questions later. So is it any wonder that some of these craft don't land where we want them to? All right, next one. September 25th, 1965, Elkin, Indiana. Miss Mabel Abisher stared astonished at a double ball UFO with windows above and a rotating red light on top, flying within 50 feet off the ground. Why would this woman lie? Why would she even make this up? Interesting case, 1965, no visible means of propulsion. Absolutely no wings, no jets, no rockets. And this is back in 65, 50 feet off the ground. This is absolutely not flying like any known aircraft that we know of here. Rabbit Hole, Jason, Roger Murray, thank you. Thanks for everything you do, Michael. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's continue on here. October 5th, 1965, Gilbert Kirchner of Fair Lawn, New Jersey, was startled to see a weird double tube UFO sail past a suburb of Trenton. Take a look at this case. Take a look at this configuration. Does this even look aerodynamic? Does this even look like it could fly? No wings, no jets. It just says it's sailing past a suburb. This is back in 1965. Who is building these things? Where are they coming from? What are they made out of? Who is the organization behind these? Or are these ET spacecraft? There's all these different configurations. Very interesting. Let's continue on here. Yes, it looks like a muffler. Sunny. Yes, it does. Rolling pin. Yes. Hidden sky machine. Absolutely. That's exactly what it looks like. Next one. Weeks before the Northeast blackout, November 9th, 1965, UFOs were seen near a Canadian power station where the chain of automatic switch shutdowns began. Did this saucer strike on cue for UFO Project Blackout? Yeah, I guess there was some UFO activity at this power plant just prior to the blackout. Lots been talked about with this blackout, and I just wanted to include one of these cases to help support that claim. So this is November 9th, 1965. Let's go on to the next one here. March 25th, 1966, Bangor, Maine. Without reason, John King fired 4 times at a cigar-shaped UFO, and he heard one of the bullets strike. If he was not under attack, why did he fire? Yep, again, this is another one of these cases. Good old America. We always shoot first and ask questions later. And here it says ping. So he heard it. It definitely hit. There's definitely a hostile threat on our part, not necessarily the ET spacecraft part. Let's continue on here. March 26, 1966, in Brazil, Indiana, a family said it was, quote unquote, no joke when they sighted a saucer shaped like a cup turned upside down, hovering overhead for 15 minutes. Again, who's building these things? This is back in 66. This kind of looks like the ARV. It's got similar type configuration. And we know that over many decades, the military-industrial complex, the defense contractors have desperately been trying to crack the gravity barrier. I already talked about that in another presentation. By 1960, they poured almost $1 billion into these programs. So they already had 6 years to perfect the technology. Absolutely, without question, there is a percentage of these cases which are man-made, no question about it. But when you start getting back to 1914, 1800s, and prior to that, now that's the point where we want to look at this with a more critical eye. Not saying it couldn't be something man-made, but when you get further back, you start talking about the ancient times and Roman times where they had the flying shields. That's where we really want to look at it here. All right, next one. March 27, 1966, Wichita, Kansas. Awakened by a humming noise, Johnny Sparks started out unbelievably at 2 donut-shaped UFOs with red, orange, and green lights, one departing and the other landing for a few minutes on his driveway. So this is 66, and it's making this interesting humming noise. That's a telltale sign, because a lot of these dish-shaped craft, prior to departure, there's like a high-pitched drilling noise, and then these things take off. So it's like a Wimshurst generator is spooling up, and then these things take off. So this is another one of these cases that might fall into that category. Solar Marshal, my favorite show so far. Thanks, Dan. Roger Murray, thank you. Roger Murray, yes, literally, these have been sightings of these things throughout all of human history, all around the world. Roger Pierce, you're absolutely correct. They have been. They're all over the world. They're totally global here. April 29th, 1966, Randy Steinman carefully noted all the amazing details of a weird UFO that hovered motionlessly above him for a full minute, after which it began rotating and climbed into the sky out of sight. Again, 1966. Does this look like anything we know of conventionally? Jet power, rocket powered. It doesn't look like anything. This is something completely different. Hovered motionlessly. There you go, right there. So you can take out any type of aerodynamic forces, any type of aerodynamic lift. You can just eliminate that completely. So someone's building this back in 66, or again, it could be something from somewhere else. Solar Marshal, Michael's the best, folks. He's got great friend as well. Yeah, good. It's important to have friends to back us up here. Next one. I like this one. April 8th, 1966, Miss Margaret Parker reported a sombrero saucer that tried to run her off the road, swooping down within 15 feet and then streaking off over the ocean. Back in 1966. Why would this lady lie? This is in Daytona, Florida. Why would she lie about this? Interesting configuration. Again, this is not flying using any type of aerodynamic lift here. Let's continue on to the next one. May 6, 1966. This is Ontario. Darlene Wagner was astonished to see a flying 10-gallon hat land neatly on top of an oil storage tank and perch there for several minutes back in 66. So, when you look at these, this 66, 67 time frame, something was done. Yeah, prototypes, Sonny, yes. Prototypes, pre-production prototypes, ARVs, dish-shaped craft being procured in the mid-1960s. It looks like someone was making a breakthrough and they were building these early designs. And then we've also heard about this falling leaf phenomenon, that when these craft power up, they have this high pitched drilling noise. And then when they get a couple, maybe 100 feet off the ground, there is this slight wobble. There's this falling leaf phenomenon until they stabilize. Once they stabilize, they're rock solid and they can take off like a spark on a grinding wheel. So that's something we need to look at as well here. Next one, May 7th, 1967, near St. George, Utah. When Michael Compartmented spied a huge UFO near the highway, he deliberately stopped his car to fire 6 pistol shots at the object and heard them ricochet, but the UFO did not threaten or harm him in any way. So here's the perfect example. He stopped the car, got out, shot at it, it hit the thing, and it did not retaliate. So what type of lesson is that teaching us? What logic is being portrayed here? Again, the threat is not the ET spacecraft. The threat is the man-made threat. That's the threat. And so what they're trying to do is, you can see what they're trying to do. They are trying to basically govern the narrative for a threat narrative so that the defense contractors can cash in on a defense contractor bonanza. That's what they're trying to do here. And this is just another good example of this. All right, next one. June 17th, 1967, Trinidad, Utah. When Steve Hardwick drove up to where a huge UFO hovered over the road, why did his 2 back tires, both new, blow out suddenly? Wow, the riddle was never explained. This is an interesting case. That's a CE2 case for sure. Physical effects. I doubt it was a offensive attack. There might have been an electromagnetic force there or something that we don't know. But this is interesting. 1967, strange case. Crypto alchemists. We need to do an episode. Yes, Steve, great. Do you think with educating the public, the human threat would go away? Maybe if enough people understood what was going on, I think we would be less likely to shoot at these. Tim Fleming, flying triangles seem to be more in modern times, maybe man-made. Yeah, definitely. You can bet on it, the flying triangles. January 18th, 1968, 4:30 p.m., while skating, Jerry Velez of Oakland, New Jersey, stared unbelievingly at a box-like object with 5 red lights that blinked in succession, plus a lighted window in front, heading toward Wannock Dam, New Jersey. A box-like UFO. Again, this doesn't conform to aerodynamic lift typically. I mean, if you had a box and you tried to fly it, I mean, if you had enough thrust, you could, but again, these things do not fly using aerodynamics for sure. Bobby McBride, good to be with you here. Let's go on to the next one. November 1967. Look at the 60s time frame here. 66, 67. It is full of these cases. Okay, November 6, 1967, Hanover, Illinois. 2 girls sighted a bright red and glowing UFO shaped like a huge thimble and rotating as it crossed the sky in 2 minutes. They come in all weird shapes. Absolutely, they do. Courtesy saucer scoop. So there's a background for this. And again, all these can be found at the Gray Barker Collection in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Thimble UFO rotating as it crossed the sky. Again, no visible means of propulsion back in 67 here. Let's do another one. November 1967, East Pakistan. People were awed to witness 3 giant cigars streaking overhead with trails of sparks behind them across the whole sky, lighting up the night brightly. Okay, so this is 67. We've got sparks coming off this thing. Now, if this is an ET civilization coming from a nearby star system, maybe 2.3 million light years away, could they make it all this way with craft that emit sparks on them? I don't know. It's a question we need to look at. But again, certainly not any type of chemical fossil fuels is being employed on these craft. This is something different. If you're coming from so far away, you're not going to be flying with any kind of type of jets or rockets. a completely different means of propulsion. This is screaming or is consistent with more of a man-made technology here. All right, next one. September 18th, 1968, Steinbach, Canada. A farmer was startled to see 3 football UFOs connected by glowing arches shedding down flurry angel hair that settled over everything in sight. Yeah, that's something we've heard of before. This whole concept of angel hair settling down on vegetation, low shrubs, trees. We've heard this before. This is back in 68. What is causing the angel hair? That's another thing we want to look at here. Next one, November 9th, 1968, Lakeland, Florida. A housewife was frightened to find a UFO floating over her home with 2 strange figures staring down through a dome at her. A transparent dome with 2 people back in 68. Yeah, I've got about 5 cases other than this one with the same type motif, the same type configuration with this bubble transparent canopy. Cloudy with a Chance, Jordan Simpson. Some are from Inner Earth. Yeah, I would venture to say that might be true. Buoyant Craft, Man-Made. Great work, Michael. Love your no-nonsense manner. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Let's continue on here. So again, all these are the Otto Binder reports. David Marler has these. Clarksburg, West Virginia has these. And what I want to point out is I only had a fraction of them. I only presented like 30. There are literally hundreds of these cases. So whenever one tries to say that nothing happened prior to 2004, you can just go back to the Otto Binder reports and show them that these cases go back, hundreds of years. There are dozens and dozens of these cases. Again, like I talked about prior to, if you want to go into the NICAP reports, you can just click on nicap.org, go to the Chronos section, and you can just read till your heart's content on a rainy Sunday afternoon. And there are thousands of cases long before 2004. So again, thank you for being with me. Jack of Ages, thank you. Sonny, thank you. Good thumbs up. So I will be back with another episode. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate all the encouragement, the kind words, and really it's an interchange of encouragement. I will continue to make these reports. Have a good night. Thank you very much.